That routine call you fire off to Claude or GPT is billed like genius work it never needed, and a smaller model you dismiss on site already does the same job better, cheaper, and faster. A benchmark dropped this summer that quietly torches the whole bigger is always smarter faith, and once you see the three numbers buried inside it, you can't unsee your own invoice. But start with the advice itself because it sounds so responsible. Just wait for the bigger model. Patient, frugal, careful. It's also the most expensive sentence living in your codebase. Here's the tell nobody says out loud. Most of what you send an AI isn't actually hard. Classify this ticket, summarize this thread, pull the order number out of this email. Done. That is not genius work, that is clerical work. And you've been routing clerical work to the single most expensive brain on the internet, then paying a premium for the privilege. It is not a rounding error, either. Somewhere between 70 and 80% of real production AI calls are exactly this: routine, repetitive, boring. The majority of your bill is a genius doing homework. That homework has a specialist now. It's called a task-specific small model, not a chatbot that knows everything a little, but a scalpel trained to do one narrow job and nothing else. Watch what that does to a real workload. 10,000 summaries a day on GPT-4. One mini costs you about $58. The same 10,000 on a model built only to summarize. $7.20. Same workload, comparable quality, 8 times less money, every single day, on a bill you had quietly stopped reading. That gap sounds harmless until you annualize it. $58 a day is over $21,000 a year. $720 a day is roughly $2,600. Same summaries, the difference is one routing decision. It gets sharper. There's a small model built for nothing but routing, deciding which model should even handle a request, and it lands at 90.53% accuracy. At roughly 200 times lower cost than GPT-5, 4 mini on the identical task. Read that back, 200 times, not 200%, a completely different order of magnitude. Extraction tells the same story. Pulling a date, a name, an amount out of messy text is a narrow, solved problem, and a narrow model nails it without renting a trillion parameters it will never light up. By now your instinct is fighting me. Cheap always means worse, right? Cheaper flights, cheaper coffee, cheaper models, you get what you pay for. Hold on to that objection. We are coming back for it. First, understand this is not a garage experiment. A Palo Alto startup called Fastino, founded by former Google DeepMind and Apple researchers, raised $17.5 million from Khosla Ventures for this exact idea. Their task-specific models run up to 99 times faster than a general-purpose LLM, and the detail that should make you sit up straight, they trained them for under $100,000 on low-end gaming GPUs. Let that land. The class of GPU sitting in a teenager's gaming rig trained a model that outperforms systems the Frontier Labs spent hundreds of millions building. The moat everyone fears is, for these jobs, a puddle. And it works for the least glamorous reason imaginable. A Frontier model spends most of its capacity staying ready for anything: sonnets, legal briefs, Rust, your grandmother's soup recipe, a generalist on permanent standby. A task-specific model throws all of that away. No poetry, no case law, no trivia, just one job, with every ounce of its much smaller brain aimed directly at it. Which means generality is a tax. You pay on every call for 1,000 skills the model might theoretically need, and your workload never once touches. Specialization refunds that tax. Smaller weights, less compute, faster tokens, lower bills, not by cutting corners, but by refusing to haul luggage the trip was never going to need. So just wait for the bigger model quietly flips on itself. It isn't the cautious call. It's a standing order to keep overpaying forever, for power your real work never uses. And while we're redlining bad advice, one model for everything isn't simplicity, it's laziness with a monthly fee. Serious systems in 2026 don't pick a model, they route between many. Same goes for the newest fashion, firing a slow, pricey reasoning model at every request. Reasoning is glorious for the hard 15%, and pure waste deciding whether an email is spam. Done right, the Frontier model becomes what it should have been all along: the specialist you call in for the genuinely hard cases, not the default you spam with everything. Which finally brings us back to the objection I told you to hold. That cheap means worse instinct. On these workloads, it isn't merely softened, it is flat out backwards. Across 3 public benchmarks, task-specific small models did not just undercut Anthropic's Claude on price. On average, they were 8% more accurate. More accurate while running 161 times cheaper and nearly 4 times faster. Read that slowly. Better, cheaper, and faster, all 3 at once. That is the sentence that breaks people. There is no trade-off hiding here, no good enough for the money. On the jobs that devour most of your budget, the small model simply wins on every axis. And that speed is not a vanity metric. When the routine calls answer almost instantly, your product stops making people stare at a spinner, and people who never wait are people who never leave. So the real move for 2026 was never patience. It's an audit. Open your logs tonight and actually read what you have been asking these models to do all day. This isn't a rewrite either. It's a routing layer and a weekend. Keep the frontier model for the hard calls and quietly hand the boring 80% to something built for exactly that. Because every classify, every summarize, every extract this field is a line item, overpaying a frontier model for clerical work, and each one is a small model waiting to cut it by 90%. Here's the uncomfortable truth no lab will ever put on a keynote slide. The best upgrade to your AI stack this year probably isn't a bigger model at all. It's the nerve to reach for a smaller one. So stop waiting for the bigger model. The better one is already on your desk, cheaper, sharper, and pointed straight at the boring work you overpay for. Which of your calls ever actually needed the giant?